So it's no secret that the Avengers Infinity War is probably the biggest movie of all time. I've got to say that I was absolutely thrilled to check this out again on 4K Blu-ray. Thank you, Disney, for sending me this disc to review. This is an extraordinary movie, not just because of its scale, but because of its competence and because of its, kind of tip of the hat to all of the work that has come before it, and a real acknowledgement of all of the efforts of many, many people to put something together that is going to coalesce and give something to the longtime fans, but also to people that are just checking out an Avengers movie or a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie every once in a while. This is, of course, the big coming together of Thanos's hunt for all of the Infinity Stones, and they have popped up in a bunch of the Marvel movies over the years. This is the movie where Thanos achieves what he sets out to do, and as expertly played by Josh Brolin, we get an understanding of Thanos's motivations. We have an empathy or somewhat of a sympathy for his desire to kind of bring balance to the universe. And as kind of crazy and outlandish and as egocentric as his plot may be, you can understand why he's motivated to do this, which is a really incredible piece of work by the writers and by the Russo brothers putting this thing together, and absolutely by Josh Brolin, who is wearing a performance capture suit to create this performance. But then all of the effects artists just take that work, and they did an incredible job of humanizing this, I think probably the scariest of villains, maybe next to Darth Vader, that we've seen in movies. I mean, Thanos is so effective and so powerful because you kind of get into his head and you can kind of understand him, and he's ruthless, and he's very hard to take out. I mean, that opening fight sequence that we see where he just flattens the Hulk is a very extraordinary piece of filmmaking, because we've seen the Hulk be able to basically overcome anything throughout the Marvel movies that we've seen him in. But this time Thanos not only decks him and flattens him, but he takes out his will to persist and come back, and that's a very funny plot sequence throughout the rest of this film, which is littered with great comedic moments as well. And all of these actors, I mean, Downey and Holland and Benedict Cumberbatch and Scarlett Johansson and Chadwick Boseman, like all of these people are just so damn good. The Guardians of the Galaxy team, Dave Bautista's got some incredible lines in this movie as well. I think the standout, though, I think this is my fourth viewing of this film, I think the standout really is Chris Hemsworth as Thor, who has everything taken away from him in the opening of this film, carrying on the stuff that he went through in Thor Ragnarok, which really wonderfully dovetails. I mean, that's the thing that you get when you watch the special features and you listen to the commentary, is that they had to kind of carry the baton. And, Coogler and his team were still building Black Panther as this movie was coming together. They didn't know where everything was going to end up or how effective or powerful the Wakanda stuff was going to be in this movie. Likewise with Taika Waititi's Thor Ragnarok. They didn't know how that was all going to come together, and they had to kind of completely adapt the script. But, the opening where we see Thor have everything ripped from him is so effective, and Hemsworth has to carry that weight, and he's got to carry the pain and the anguish, but he's also still, a lighthearted character that can, see the humor in lots of stuff. And the performance called for Hemsworth to kind of, cry and smile and hold his chin up and, be kind of ferocious in his determination to get revenge on Thanos. And he just does it, man. He is fantastic in this movie. But I can't fault anybody, even if they're only in for slivers of a time. Like Chris Evans doesn't really have tons to do as Captain America in this movie, but he commands the screen every time they flash to him, and he owns those moments. And that's what you can say about every single one of the heroes and every single one of the actors in here. And what's really interesting when you watch all of the behind-the-scenes stuff is that they endeavored to create a movie that stripped away a lot of complicated plot, because it was all about these character interactions, and some of them for the first time, and that's what we wanted to see as fans and as an audience member. But I feel also a little bit sad for those folks that only, you know, pop in every once in a while into the MCU. And it's hard to not, because, you know, this has been this omnipresent just force in the theaters and on Netflix ever since Iron Man popped on screens in 2008. I mean, there's been so many. This was the 19th, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp was the 20th movie in 10 years. So they are pervasive. You can't escape them. But if you've only watched them every once in a while, you don't get the full force of what happens in Infinity War. And it's incredible. It's absolutely stunningly crafted. It's so gorgeous on screen. Obviously, everything is shot on blue and green screens. You know, lots of plate shots and stuff. But there is this otherworldliness, this kind of transportive quality that you actually go on these interstellar cosmic journeys, and you know the battle that takes place in Wakanda. It just feels powerful and gripping. I mean, the production team, you find out in the behind the scenes, built a river in Georgia. They shot it in Georgia and plated you know, chunks of Africa in the background to kind of composite it all together and make it look like we actually are in Wakanda in Africa. And they did a great job, because obviously this was a different production than what Ryan Coogler and his team were building for Wakanda. So they used maps and research that they were getting from that film to kind of bring the third act of this movie to life in such an incredible way. And also all the planets that we get to do, all these planet hopping sequences that we get to do. We see Thanos destroy civilizations. We see Thanos destroy his own soul in sequences. And everything has a weight, and particularly if you've been invested in the performances and the storytelling and the craftsmanship of the MCU stuff all the way along. It's really incredible. I don't think it's as standalone as the Avengers origin story, and not just because there's a sequel which kind of will be the answer to Infinity War next year, which I can't wait for, but I think when you weigh it against what Joss Whedon was able to do with the first Avengers, bringing, you know, just a handful of these characters together to kind of show that this is possible, I think that still kind of stands out as a you know, a better film and a bigger kind of first achievement for the MCU. This is just like an achievement for all of filmmaking, that you know, it's possible to put what do they have, like 35 actors or something like that into this thing, and they all get lines, they all get moments. There's a resonance there, there's a weight there. It's still incredibly powerful, but you know that it's better if you know every single detail, if you've seen all the other movies, and you're going to be also on board for the sequel to this one. So it feels, by its nature, it feels like the whole story isn't complete. That's not to say I was underwhelmed, or I don't appreciate, or I didn't freaking love this movie, because I absolutely did. I think it's amazing, and I loved listening to the commentary with the writers and the directors, and sort of understanding the clockwork kind of you know, production process that they had to employ in order to pull this whole thing off. It's really like a Hollywood caper behind the scenes, you know, like they had to put all of these pieces together, and then they jumped right on to the sequel, which, you know, I'm sure they're wrapping up a lot of the effect shots for right now. It looks insane in 4K, and the audio is amazing too. The thundering booms of the explosions and Thanos' heavy voice, and you know, the amazing battles that take place on New York City streets, and you know, all over the galaxy. It is insane, and all of the colors and the differences between these environments and the color scheming that they would have if we're in space or on Titan, or we're in you know, Wakanda for a battle or whatever. It's just all of these beautiful artistic contributions to build something that is just staggering to behold, and 4K is the way that you hold it all together. Listen, if you are as big of an MCU fan as I am, you have got to have this thing in your collection. The 4K Blu Ray, it is astounding. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.